A ceasefire between Israel and militant group Hezbollah has gone into effect, and residents are returning to southern Lebanon, an area heavily bombarded by the Israeli military. The truce calls for a 2-month halt in fighting to begin with, and it requires Hezbollah to end its armed presence in most of southern Lebanon. Meanwhile, Israeli troops would return to their side of the border, according to the Associated Press.
The deal does not address the war in Gaza. Hamas has called for a ceasefire following the Lebanon agreement. Joining us now to discuss is Simone Ledeen, the former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for the Middle East under President Trump. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So what are we to make of this ceasefire deal being in place? I think so many Americans want to see greater peace in the Middle East, want to see greater safety and security for Israel. Is this a kind of thing that is good for that country, given all of its military conflicts going on right now?
Well, I think it would be better to look at this as more of a tactical pause than a long-term ceasefire. In fact, the agreement was for 60 days, and it's not a coincidence that President Trump gets sworn in 53 days. So first of all, I just want to make that clear. It's more of a tactical pause than an actual cessation of hostilities. And there were many reasons for this. But of course, peace is good, but I just don't see this as a lasting peace, unfortunately.
And in relation to your comment about it being a tactical pause, let's just flesh that out a little bit. I mean, of course, everyone watching will have their own view of the underlying conflict, but when you say a tactical pause, what are the motivations for either side to have a temporary pause rather than a longer cessation?
Well, neither side has really achieved its stated desired outcomes from this conflict. So on the Israeli side, I believe if I were a decision maker over there, I would take this opportunity to have the fighters rest, refit, rearm. They were in drastic need of rearmament, and the United States was withholding a lot of the weapons that Israel needs to complete this war and to achieve the victory that it needs, driving Hezbollah out of southern Lebanon per the United Nations Security Council Resolution 1701, driving Hezbollah north and away from the Israeli border. On the Hezbollah side, they stated a while ago that they were not going to stop their hostilities until they were helping Hamas with its war against Israel. In fact, signing this agreement means that they have backed away from that goal. They have not achieved that goal, and yet they have agreed to a ceasefire, at least a temporary one. So it's clear that Hezbollah is back on its heels. And I believe just like Israel is, they will take the opportunity to rest their fight, allow their fighters to rest, and to refit and rearm themselves. Although a lot of their rockets and larger weapons caches have been destroyed by Israel.
What do you expect Trump to do when he gets into office with respect to not just Israel and Lebanon, but Israel and Gaza? You know, the Gaza issue has been something that clearly divided Democrats, that hurt Joe Biden among some of his base, the perception that he was being too deferential to Israel and to Netanyahu. But of course, Republicans remain, and Trump has been extremely supportive of Israel and Netanyahu in the past, while still recognizing that this is an unpopular issue on the Democratic side. And there are some Republicans, clearly Republican voters, who want the U.S. to be less involved in the Middle East to whatever extent possible. What kind of difference, or is it more of a continuity, do you expect we're going to see with respect to Donald Trump and Israel policy?
Well, the best way for America to stay out of these conflicts is for us to stand back from this aggressive stance of preventing armaments to get to Israel. Israel can finish this. We just need to step back and allow them to do that. The faster Israel wins this war, and it will win, the faster Israel wins this war, the faster we can move forward with a new Middle East, a peaceful Middle East, rebuilding the Middle East and helping the Lebanese people, the Gazan civilians. That's what we all want to see. So withholding armaments, making threats to Israel regarding the UN and different like the International Criminal Court, this just draws this out and actually has been leading to some of these humanitarian issues that we've been seeing. So I believe the best way forward, and I know that the incoming Trump administration, they've already made several statements to this effect. They're going to take the handcuffs off Israel in terms of withholding armaments, in terms of making threats in the United Nations, and allowing Israel to do what it needs to do in this war of self-defense to push back these Iranian-backed terrorist threats and allow them to achieve this victory. And again, this frees up the United States to focus on what we need to do, which is outside of the Middle East in the long term.
Let me push back, or at least give a contrary view there, Simone, to some of the arguments you were making and some of the language you were using. You were saying, for example, that it was important that the United States stand back from what is going on there. But I mean, the United States has supplied about $18 billion in military aid to Israel already. It is not, the standing back would surely involve, if one wanted to stand back, one would be reducing the amount of military aid to Israel. And you also said about Israel having the handcuffs removed, or that President-elect Trump would remove the handcuffs. I mean, they've killed more than 40,000 Palestinians and more than 3,000 Lebanese. There's not much evidence that handcuffs have been placed on them in the first place, is there?
Well, I disagree with your characterization, and I disagree with the number that you just threw out, which is a number that is provided by Hamas, hardly an impartial arbiter of life and death in this. I think it's important to note that Hamas, in fact, built its weapons factories, housed its fighters within civilian populations in order to maximize civilian casualties. And so and again, this was an attack against Israel on October 7th that Israel has been reacting to ever since, a horrific attack. So I think it's important to note that. And so yeah, I disagree with your characterization of this. And when I say handcuffs, what I mean is the continued slow walking of armaments to Israel from the United States. I think there's some real specific demonstrated examples of this, and it's been ongoing. And this was the reason why Israel had to come back to the negotiating table. They really had no choice, but also because they need these armaments now. Again, I think it is cruel to extend the conflict into X number of years. I think the kindest way to fight this war, which this is a war that is happening now. It's not some pie in the sky idea for the future. It's happening today. So I think the most important thing to do is win this and allow our close ally Israel to win this defensive war. And what we need to do in order to allow them to do that is to provide them the armaments that they need to complete their mission, to achieve victory over these terrorists, and to allow the Lebanese people, the Gazan people, the Israeli people to flourish as we know they want to do.
Simone Ledeen, thank you for coming on to share that perspective with our viewers. We appreciate it.
Thank you.